who has joined today, as it is customary for Muslims to begin their programs with a recitation from a portion from the Holy Quran. I request my friend Burhan Ahmad to recite a verse from the Holy Quran.
Assalamu alaikum. May peace be upon all of you. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu kunu qawwamin شهداء بالقسط ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم على ألا تعدلوا اعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون.
Now I request Maloof to read the English translation, please.
Assalamu alaikum. I will be reciting the English translation of the verse just recited from chapter 5, verse 9. I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed Satan, in the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful. O ye who believe, be steadfast in the cause of Allah, bearing witness in equity, and let not a people's enmity incite you to act otherwise than with justice. Be always just, that is, nearer to righteousness, and fear Allah. Surely Allah is aware of what you do.
Thank you. At this time, a land acknowledgement. Members of Bai'tul Kareem Mosque and the entire Waterloo region acknowledges that we are situated upon the land traditionally used by the Haudenosaunee, Anishpe, neutral people. We also acknowledge the enduring presence and deep traditional knowledge and philosophies of the indigenous people whom we share this land today. At this time, I would request everyone to stand up, and we're going to recite the national anthem of Canada. Thank you. I request Dr. Ahmad Imran, Outreach Secretary for the local Ahmadiyya Muslim Jama and Bai'tul Kareem Mosque for his introductory opening remarks.
In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful. We have remembered our veterans, and we had a big event on Sign It Off by Legion 121, who are our partners. Yesterday, I spoke about the idea of remembrance, that what we Muslims believe, and then I have taken the message of Remembrance Day from the mosque to the main Remembrance Day program. According to that, we stand united with Canadians across the world today, with our hearts mourning and aching, yet at the same time filled with gratitude and gratefulness. We go back in history and remember the sacrifice for our own freedom today, the ultimate sacrifice of life, sacrifice of pleasure, sacrifice of one's homeland, which gives us freedom today. Freedom of religion, freedom of expression, and freedom of choice. The Holy Prophet of Islam, may God bless him, said, "Love for one's homeland is the part of the faith." Our love for our country demands that we remember and commemorate the heroes. He, the Prophet, may peace and blessings of God be upon him, further said, "One who is not thankful to people can never be thankful to God." So we are thankful to the fallen soldiers, to the veterans, to our first line of defense, our first responders. Everybody is included in that. Thus today we stand in remembrance. We stand as one body, as Canadians, grateful and full of appreciation. The Holy Prophet also said, "One who dies protecting their land is considered a martyr." Surely the sacrifice of Canadian veterans will not go in vain. Today, living in the Western world, it is our responsibility to not let this sacrifice go in vain. We can only truly attain freedom if we remember those who fought for it. Not only on Remembrance Day, but from time to time, we should think, ponder, and reflect on the sacrifices made for this country and instill these sacrifices in our society. In Islamic scripture and the Bible, we find stories over and over again stating that the spirit of sacrifice is what truly gives one bliss and peace. This is a universal law which cannot be defied. At the end, I pray that today, like yesterday, that may God bless the fallen soldiers, the veterans, and the families of all who lived their life for our freedom today. May God bless Canada, lest we forget. We wanted to have a separate Remembrance Day program in the mosque, but with the consultation of our friends in the Legion, because of the ongoing situations on ground, we have slightly changed the complexion of this program into Voices of Peace. Canada is truly a multicultural and multi-faith society, and I remember from the history the comments of our fourth Imam, late Hadrat Mirza Tahir Ahmad, that he said that I want the whole world to become Canada and Canada to become the whole world according to our global message of love for all and hatred for none. But we cannot put our ice cream in the oven overnight and expect to enjoy it next morning. We have to stop the increase in incidents of hate crime as reported by RCMP in the name of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia in our streets and cities. We should reach out to our friends, neighbors, and our communities to propagate peace and harmony. We attended a meeting in Temple Shalom in Waterloo on Thursday to address the humanitarian issues arising due to the crisis in the Middle East. Last week, Palestinian Ahmadiyya Muslim community, you can see some pictures on that of that program as well. So Ahmadiyya Muslim community of Israel organized a peace appeal in the mosque of Kababir, Haifa, jointly by hundreds of Israeli Jewish citizens, according to a Jewish guest, and I quote, "In my view, this gathering serves as a significant testament that demonstrates to the Islamic community, the Jewish community, and the global community at large, we can engage in meaningful dialogue that brings us together. We are not adversaries, we are allies. Together we achieve success." These kind of events are rays of hope, and we need to have more like them as we are having today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, I would request the Imam of this mosque, Missionary Fatir Mahmood Ahmad, to provide an Islamic perspective on how to achieve peace in the world. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. May the peace and blessings of God be upon all of you. In the name of Allah, the gracious, ever merciful. On October 7th, on a bright, beautiful day, we saw it become darkened with chaos, havoc, and ruin. We saw thousands of Jewish people who were horrifically killed by Hamas. We as the Ahmadiyya Muslim community unequivocally condemn all acts of violence, all acts of killing, and all acts of malice. These acts which were perpetrated, these crimes, these killings which were perpetrated have nothing to do with Islam. The Holy Quran categorically says that a person who kills someone, an innocent one, it is like he has killed or she has killed all of humankind. This is categorically unacceptable. The Holy Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings of God be upon him, said that all humans are equal. He said that no black person has any supremacy over a white person and vice versa. No non-Arab is better than an Arab, or no Arab is better than a non-Arab. But he said that God looks at people's hearts. He looks at actions. He sees who is doing better for humanity and rewards people according to that. As the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, we condemn all acts of violence. Ahmadis in Pakistan are persecuted. This is something that we share with Jews or with any Palestinian in the world right now who is being attacked. We in our own country are persecuted, and by constitution we are persecuted and are not given a fair share of making a living, of being citizens. We are not even allowed declaring ourselves as Muslims in Pakistan. We see that there's a lot of crimes which are being committed, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia within Canada as well. After these attacks, hate crime has been enhanced quite a lot. After this attack, the President of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, has openly given a green light to IDF to attack any Palestinian and kill any Palestinian in their occupied land. And we see these horrific videos that are surfacing the web, where children are being massacred, where kids are being killed, where elderly women are being slaughtered, where elderly men are being killed. The Holy Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may the peace and blessing of God be upon him, taught us ethics even in war. He said that do not kill anything which is living. He said do not kill the priests He said, do not kill the elderly. He said, do not kill children. He said, do not kill women. He said, do not break down temples or churches or mosques or synagogues. So even in war, there needs to be some sort of moral compass. There needs to be an ethical line that needs to be drawn. We see that the Palestinians are crying for help. There's various interviews that we were seeing on the BBC, on CNN, on different media outlets, where the Palestinians are crying. They're saying that are we not human? Do we not deserve any rights? Do we deserve to be slaughtered? Yesterday, or a few days back, I was driving on Highway 401 and I saw a beautiful message behind a van and it said that there's a princess on board. And I was just thinking that, people that cherish their children so much, and it's the most beautiful thing that a person can have is a child. And I was thinking that 401, it's a dangerous highway, but overall it's a very safe highway. People commute on it on a daily basis. And I was just putting myself in that position. I have a young boy, a son who's just about to turn 2. I was thinking that imagine me holding my son in my hands and he's dead and he's been killed and slaughtered. What would I think, or what would go in my head, or how would I mourn? And it's unimaginable because we've never been in that type of circumstance. So my brothers and sisters, there needs to be peace in the world. And we, like I mentioned before, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, we condemn all acts of violence. But what is happening in Palestine is horrific. And I'm sure people, when they wake up, all of you have seen those videos of children being gunned down with snipers, women being killed, who are not a part of Hamas. They have nothing to do with terrorism. They're just innocent people walking the streets. Even yesterday, finally from the Western world, the Western media has been very biased when it comes to this Palestine issue. When Hamas commits a crime, they're very, very vocal about this. But when these atrocious crimes are being done on innocent Palestinians, there's silence. There's silence in the media, but that silence is echoing in the cries of the Palestinians. Yesterday, Macron, who is the president of France, he finally said that there needs to be a ceasefire. Enough is enough. We've seen enough death. I was watching an interview of Elon Musk, who's quite a renowned mind. He said that, if a person lost 4 children or 4 young boys or 4 young daughters, what would be his mindset or her mindset? Would they want revenge? Are you creating more Hamas members? Or are you putting an end to violence? Killing is not the answer. This debate of, what's a proportionate attack and what's not, these are useless talks. Because at the end of the day, when hate is challenged with hate, when it's hate versus hate, then there could be no solution in this regard. So my brothers and sisters, all of you are those who hold office in government. This is a humble plea that we need to do what we can in our social circles to help this cause. And we, as the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, our supreme leader, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, has said over and over again in his sermons that the Holy Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings of God be upon him, has taught ethics and morals even against your worst enemies. Even in the heat of battle, there needs to be a moral compass, a moral line. So at the end, we pray that may God establish peace on this earth, and may all of us do our part. Thank you.
Thank you so much. At this time, we are grateful to a number of our friends, members of municipal, regional, provincial, national government and law enforcement and school who have joined us. At this moment, as a gesture of peace, I would like to call upon all the elected officials and the law enforcement members close to the head table, and we're gonna together light a candle for peace. It's just our gesture that I'll also request Pastor Frank, who just joined us, to come in that. And after that, we will hear what your thoughts are from all of you on peace. So please come forward. So this candle is symbolically lighted as showing our commitment and our unity towards peace. Now let's hear some voices for peace. Let us hear from our elected officials and some other dignitaries on their role on what they can do to achieve peace in the world, how to unite communities and societies in these difficult times, especially in light of growing hate crimes across Canada and in light of the wars in the Middle East and around the world. Kindly express your sentiments on how you can advocate for peace at your local, provincial, regional, national, or even international level. So we're gonna start from the municipal level. So from, I think, municipal level, we have one mayor. Oh, you're acting there?
No, I'm mayor for one.
Oh, yes, from the township. So let's start from you, and let's do the local municipal levels, and then we'll go. So the mayor of Wilmot, Natasha Solomon, please.
Thank you so much for having me. Clearly, when you show up late, you get to speak first. I want to say thank you very much for hosting this event and for bringing our community together. I really think this is one way that we as communities can work towards peace. And certainly through Veterans Week, I've been reflecting and been to various events. And in high school also, I used to be a part of our women's choir. We used to sing in Flanders Field. So I've gotten to know that poem very well. And in that poem, there's a call to action that is, take up the quarrel with our foe. To you from failing hands we pass the torch. Be it yours to hold it high. And with that, I reflect that not only is that referring to the great wars that happened, but also that I think our foe collectively is human nature and our ability to other people and to have our own evil. I think within everyone there is ability to do good and there's ability to do bad. And I think there is a sole responsibility to start from within and to really want peace from within and work with empathy and compassion with everyone in your community. And I really take that quite honestly in the work that I do, both as a mayor, but also as an individual person. And I think that if we all can be empathetic in our communities, and certainly when we heard from our earlier speaker about the cries of help from both people in Palestine and Israel who are getting caught by people who are going about evil and following, I would say, the wrong path in life. They're getting caught in the crossfires, and I think it is a responsibility of all of us to really look and self-reflect and to figure out how we as a community can continue to be empathetic and to really every day wake up and choose peace. And it is a choice, and it is a choice that it requires one to reflect, and sometimes it's not necessarily easy because it might be going against how others feel and think. And I think certainly in municipal politics, it's our responsibility as leaders to lead and show people that we can choose peace and that we can work as a community, whether we have different faiths or different belief systems, different colors of skin. I think we can show healthy way forward towards our more collective goals. So thank you again so much for having me today, and I will pass it along.
Thank you so much. Is the councillor Corey from the city of Cambridge? She's the acting mayor. The mayor had to go to Europe, and so I should have called you first because you're representing the city of Cambridge, but that's fine.
That's okay. Thank you very much, everyone. I'm Corey Kimson. I am the ward councillor for Ward 3 in the Preston area of Cambridge, and I'm here on behalf of Mayor Jan Liggett, as well as my fellow councillors, some of whom are here today. When I think about peace and the role that I as a councillor play, I think of the work that I do around the horseshoe with my fellow municipal councillors. And there are many issues that come to us. Some are simple and some of them are far more complex. Some of them affect us here in the city of Cambridge, and others go well beyond. And through our conversations and our openness to discuss with one another our different viewpoints and our thoughts, we are able to make decisions and move forward together. They're not always unanimous, but it is with the respect that we have for one another when we perhaps disagree, and our ability to continue moving forward toward the common goal of our community that helps us to build our community. Away from a political level, when I think of peace and what my role is here in the community and what I can do as an individual, it comes down to how we can be curious and welcoming, and how we can invite others to learn about ourselves, about our faiths, our beliefs, our families, perhaps our heritage. When my daughters were younger, they attended a school, a preschool, and they had a peace table. And if the children had a quarrel or a misunderstanding, they would have an opportunity to go to the peace table, and above the table there was a sign that says, "Peace begins with you." And at the table, the children were encouraged to sit down and discuss. Was it somebody pulled someone's hair, or somebody took a toy, or used something that somebody else wanted? But the idea that even as young people, they were able to come together as equals and discuss what was going on and move forward, that helps to instill the peace. And that is what we can do as community members. And we must be mindful of the comments we make around our young people and our thoughts, so that we are always reinforcing the positive and reinforcing our ability to work with our fellow community members. And that is how we, as community members, can work together. And I'm grateful to be here today with everyone, to learn from everyone, and to hear from everyone. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Carey. Now I'll request Mayor Sue Fulton to say a few words.
And again, thank you for letting me be here. I'm old. It's a pleasure to be old. People that have lost their lives in wars and that don't ever get to be as old as I am. But I grew up a young girl in the 60s. Do you remember the 60s? I told my husband when I got married that we'd have to explain to my children what racism was, because it would no longer be. I was young and naive. I cannot believe we have not evolved as we should. I was raised in the church, and I was taught that God made everyone. God loved everyone, and we are to love one another. What happened to us? And we have to live it and breathe it and show it and express it every day of our lives. And you've got it here. Every one of these politicians and armed forces and our priests and that, we work together. We're a team to be the best we can be. So we take care of our corner of the world, but what about the rest of the world? We have to get behind our higher level officials, Brian May and the federal government and the provincial government, and say we need to do more. We need to strengthen the United Nations. We need to say that no one has the right to take a life ever. There is just no possible reason. And when we put aside hate, we learn so much from each other. We share so much from each other. So this is a war on hate. there should be any war. The word hate should be removed from our vocabularies. The most frightening thing is when we get a leader who strives for power and uses his people as a pawn. That is when we get in trouble. And that is when our United Nations needs to be the strongest. So tonight and every night, go home and be at peace with your families and your neighbors, but pray. Pray for our world. It needs our prayers. And only through God can we come through this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to check if the acting mayor from Kitchener is here. Yes, Councillor Ayo Owoduni. I don't know if I say your name right, but please, a few words on your message of peace.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Councillor Ayo, representing Mayor Barry Verbanelli. Unfortunately, couldn't make it. Today is out of the country. I have my two lovely kids here, so if you notice chairs falling and all sorts of noise, it's not my fault. You know, a few days ago, I was listening to the radio, and one of our AM stations in Kitchener, and they were talking about immigrants, and callers were calling in, and the phrase used was, those people. I'm one of those immigrants. I was shocked because I thought by now, with the thousands coming in and the value people are adding in the community, things will change, or people's opinions will change. I mean, I give kudos to the presenter who kept pushing back, but it really shocked me that that was something that kept coming up. A few days ago, a fellow Nigerian reached out to me on LinkedIn who lives in Kitchener and was referring to Indians as those Indians. And I had to push back and challenge that person on what they were saying. Last week I was on a call with several Nigerians, and I challenged us to think about, you know, we're so vocal about how we feel people are treating us in Canada, but I hear comments from many of us of how we talk about other groups of people. And it can be very frustrating for me because it feels like you take one step forward and you're also taking 2 steps back. So what I've been pushing myself to do a bit more was to be more vocal, to speak up, to push back with people, even when I don't feel comfortable doing it. And certain individuals will feel whenever we're in groups or cliques, it's easier to be able to talk about other communities. And I want to ask us to be able to do the same thing when we're in our groups, where people feel safe and the walls go down behind closed doors and they start to talk about other communities. What do we say? Are we silent, or do we speak up? I pray for peace in our world. I pray for peace, and more importantly, I pray that each and every one of us, we're able to do our part and show people the importance of unity, diversity, the beauty of inclusion, and let's live by example so that those around us can start seeing that there's something different about this individual, but more importantly, we're living a message of peace and not just speaking about the message of peace as well. But thank you for having me here. Once again, greetings from Mayor Barry. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you so much. Is Mayor Sandy from the township of Woolwich here? I think she is right here. Okay. So now I'm going to move to the regional level. Chair Karen Redmond, please. I know your message is very strong.
So, Assalamu alaikum. I am really thrilled to be back here, and I have to tell you that one of the really wonderful things about serving in public life is that you get invited to mosques, temples, gurdwaras, and places of worship that look very different than where I attended St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church. But what we learn is there are so many values that are cohesive and bring us together. I really do want to thank Ahmadiyya Muslim community for organizing Muslims for Remembrance. And I know that we're talking about peace right now, not just remembrance. But in remembrance, there can be healing, and there's also a call to action. I would have to tell you that everybody lives in community, and we can make a difference in the community in which we live, and that can reverberate nationally and around the world. And I look at Voices for Peace, and I look at the annual Healing in a Polarized Nation, and that multi-religious event that has been happening for years. And those are the kinds of calls to action that we need to implement in our community. One of the hats that I wear, and I don't want to preempt the chief, but is being chair of the WRPS Police Board, and the relationships that we have with the Muslim women and the anti-racism and hate line that they can call absolutely empowers our community not only to recognize Islamophobia and anti-Semitism and racism in all of its forms, but also it's a call to action. So we can make a difference, and I would just reach back to the very first speaker that talked about, you know, Canada really has become the world. And it doesn't matter what kind of human tragedy, atrocity, or even environmental issue that's happening around the world. There are people in our community that feel those kind of injustices and hurts on a very personal level. So we need to reach out, and we need to be a voice for peace and freedom. Because without freedom, you don't have peace, and without peace, you don't have freedom. So it is something we all need to unite together to act on. So again, thank you for inviting me here on behalf of my regional council colleagues. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Ken. Is the MPP from Guelph here? Okay, yeah, so we're gonna have MPPs now, so let's start from you, Mike Schreiner, right? So we're gonna start with, let's see.
Well, assalamu alaikum, and I just want to say to the members of the mosque, thank you so much for bringing us together each and every year to remember and to honor the service and sacrifice of veterans, first responders, and their families, because their sacrifice is defending our democracy and our freedoms. And I think one of the ways we build peace is through a multiracial, multi-ethnic democracy that respects human rights and that resolves our differences through debate and dialogue, the ballot box, and that we can come together to do that. And their sacrifices are vital to providing us with the space to do that. For myself, particularly in the last month, I've had a lot of difficult conversations with Jews in our community, talking about the pain and the fear and the sense of helplessness they've experienced, especially as a result of what happened on October 7th. And I've spoken with members, the Palestinian members of our community, who too have shared the pain and the fear and the loss of family members who they've lost over the last month. And I think one of the roles we as elected officials can play is to empathize, to care, to support, to share, and to hold space for people, to bring them together as bridge builders and peacemakers in our community. Because I think oftentimes peace really begins in our neighborhoods, in our communities, in our backyards. And that's something that I think we as elected officials can do together, across party lines, across our differences. And the other thing I call on all of us, and I hold myself responsible for this, is that we have to stand in solidarity against the rise of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia we see in our communities today, and stand in solidarity with those communities to say that hate will not be tolerated in Ontario, in Canada, and in our communities. And so I want to thank you for providing us with the opportunity to bring us together to share how we can work collectively for peace and for each other. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and we have from Cambridge and Kitchener South, Jess Dixon. Thank you.
Thank you all for inviting me here. I've been sitting over there going back and forth in my head about what I was going to talk about, and to be honest, I don't think I figured it out yet, so we'll see how it goes. My Instagram, I follow a lot of Palestinian journalists, and when I go on Instagram, right now I see nothing but dead and dying children and parents and obliterated buildings. I even follow veterinary organizations in Palestine and see what they're going through. And the fact that this global situation is happening, has crossed over into Remembrance Day, has been particularly challenging because Remembrance Day used to be called Armistice Day. And it's celebrated on November 11th because November 11th was the day that the Armistice Agreement was signed, which ended the First World War. The First World War was a largely political war as versus an ideological war. And the word armistice, it's a truce, it's a ceasefire, it's a cessation of hostilities. So on the day that we are celebrating Remembrance Day, we are in fact celebrating the signing of a peace agreement. And that point has been resonating in my mind in the days leading up to this. Because when we talk about sacrifice, when we talk about remembering those who laid down their lives for this country, the purpose isn't simply to mark space for their existence and the fact that they are no longer here, and the fact that they never got the chance to live out the lives that they ought to have lived. It's supposed to be a reminder of a time where there wasn't enough collective will in the entire world to believe that a war could be stopped once it had already started. Of a time when trench warfare and deaths by the millions was considered an accepted part of warfare that was unavoidable. And so the purpose of Remembrance Day wasn't just to say, remember those who died. It was supposed to be, remember those who died and why they died. And particularly supposed to be we remember so that we don't do it again. And it's interesting because King George, when he came and dedicated the War Memorial in Ottawa in 1939, he came and said that without freedom there could be no enduring peace, and without enduring peace there could be no enduring freedom. And he said that in 1939, already knowing that there was another massive war on the horizon. I will be sort of blunt here. Frankly, I'm speaking to a room of mostly politicians, but you know, my party has been very definitive in the comments that it has made, and I know what I see on Instagram. I know the suffering that I see, and I don't really view it as a shade of gray or a question as to whether or not that should be stopped. It is an unimaginable amount of suffering, and for me personally, just brief anecdote, I ended up doing a lot of work with the Toronto Police Service and a number of their Muslim members who operate a charity called Project Hope. And some of these people have become some of my closest friends, and three of them in particular, Farhan, Mustafa, and Farzad, all three of them are Muslim men. And when we first started seeing the bombings in Gaza, we talked about the women and the children, and at least let the women and children leave. And all I could think of was my friends, who are all fathers. And I thought, do their lives not matter? Because they're Muslim men. I see in them the people that I see on Instagram, and their lives have value as well. I have met with several mosques in this area. My constituents have been very clear about what they want, and I will be bringing that message with me to Queen's Park. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess, that was nice. Now we will, before we move to the national level, Honorable Bardish Chugger had to leave, and I think MP Brian May is gonna speak on her behalf as well. But before that, I think on the regional level, we have police, and we don't want to ignore them, otherwise they've got all the guns. The chief, I'm glad to have, I'm pleased to have the chief of police, Mark, say a few words on what he can do, and I know you've been doing a lot.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. It's an honor to be here today with Staff Superintendent John Goodman, Inspector Zima Dietrich. And we're here today certainly in remembrance and recognition and celebration of the hard-fought freedoms over many generations of Canadians who have brought us the level of peace that we enjoy today in Canada and certainly in this community. And I think of our members who have a duty not only to uphold the laws of this country, of this land, but also to stand as guardians of human rights and guardians of peace. And we have the honor and the duty to turn our prayers and our hopes into action. And I'm very proud to say that we do have a plan in this community for peace, and it is called a Community Safety Wellbeing Plan. And one of the pillars is to combat hate in all its forms. But in order to achieve it and to maintain it, we need to be very deliberate. And every act of violence, every threat of violence, and every act of hatred needs to be addressed, reported, and stamped out in every form. So the work that our members do every day is purposeful, and it is rooted in action. And we stand here today so heartened to be here and be welcomed back in friendship and in solidarity. And we recognize that this is a journey of all of us, that all of us here today are here for one purpose, and that is making this community a beacon of hope for all others around the world. So we look forward to the continued journey with you, and to truly build a society and a community that is welcoming, that is intentional, and that is seeking to build one that is certainly rooted in love for all and hatred for none. Thank you.
Thank you, and just to recognize, we have John Goodman and his wife as well, and Inspector Dietrich as well. So thank you very much for being here, and thank you very much for being a part of this program that we're trying to do here. Now I'm going to move to the, and on the local level, a bunch of councillors are also here. Councillor Ross, Councillor Sherry, Councillor Nicholas, Councillor Hamilton, Scott Hamilton, and at the end, if they want to say something, we'll give some time to you guys as well. But let's move to the national level. I'm going to ask to start with MP Brian May. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum. First and foremost, I would love to thank you for having us here today. Putting this on is very important. I've spoke to a number of my colleagues across the country, and I mentioned what I was doing today and where I was going, and they were very excited to hear that this kind of activity was happening in our community. Before I speak about what we can do towards peace, I do want to recognize the focus on remembrance and congratulate President Sutton and his team from the Legion. Yesterday was truly amazing. I know that you ordered the weather, so thank you for that. And the Jets. And the Jets. And the Jets. Well, I think maybe I had something to do with it, but yesterday, of course, was a very emotional day, as Remembrance Day usually is. But obviously was more pertinent yesterday than I had experienced in a very long time. We continue the tradition of remembrance so that the sacrifices made in the name of liberty and justice are never in vain. To guarantee that military force only is ever used as a last resort. For the thought of war must never become convenient. Sadly, our world, as has been discussed at length today, has not moved towards peace since we've gathered in the past. Democracies continue to be tested and nations face tremendous challenges, both abroad and here at home. Peace and justice must never become a foregone conclusion. We must work towards those values and not lose sight of our responsibility in remembering the men and women who fought for our freedom and gave the ultimate sacrifice to see it endure. In terms of what we can do in our communities to focus on peace, everyone here, just by coming here today, is a leader in your community, not just the elected officials, not just the speakers. And I agree with all that has been said, but I wanted to just sort of pinpoint something that MPP Dixon addressed, and she mentioned social media, she mentioned Instagram. What I am hearing in the community is an immense amount of frustration, both from the Muslim community and the Jewish community. That frustration is born out of fear, anger, and a sense of helplessness. And what I hope we can take away from today is a renewed focus, that we recognize that there are people in our community that are struggling. They may not want to talk about it. They may not want to go to a rally and show their support one way or the other, but they're struggling. I met with a group of Muslim stakeholders last Saturday, and I talked about the geopolitics, I talked about the difference between ceasefire and humanitarian pause. They didn't care. What they care about is the mental health of their children. The fact that every one of us in this room is holding a device that has a direct link to our children, showing children the horrors of war. When I learned about war, I'd read about it in a book. I'd read about it in a newspaper. I can remember my mom just totally horrified during the Gulf War that we were sitting watching in real time. Little green lights in the sky. Those of you who are old enough will remember that. First time on CNN, you could see war live. And I remember distinctly my mom talking about how this was not good, how this was not going to be helpful. Every child has a cell phone. Every child is being bombarded with imagery that, frankly, none of us should see, let alone children. And we need to focus on that. We need to stay laser focused on the mental health of all of us. And so my challenge to everybody here, as a leader in your community, focus on being kind, focus on being patient, focus on understanding. We need to do everything we can to tamp down the rhetoric, tamp down the anger and the fear, and not pour more fuel on the fire. Because we are going to be struggling with this long after this conflict is over. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. Tim Lewis is here. I'd like to invite Tim Lewis for his few words. Thank you.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. As a member of Parliament for Kitchener-Conestoga, I've been privileged over the last weekend and this weekend also to be at a number of remembrance ceremonies. All of them meaningful, and I think the most meaningful part about those ceremonies was people standing in silence, that silent reverence, in respect of those who made the ultimate sacrifice and gave us the freedoms we have today in Canada. And among those freedoms are freedom of expression. But how we use that expression makes a difference. Islamophobia, anti-Semitism are not forms of expression that people sacrifice their lives for. I think that's something everyone in this room, all levels of government, realize that is one of our responsibilities as Canadians, is to make sure that we're not living in a world that is filled with hate. And that's what we can do at home, and that's what my focus has been, and so many of you in this room, is to bring that temperature down, have those conversations with our own communities and make sure that Islamophobia and anti-Semitism does not exist, and do everything we can to address that head on. We've heard it from a number of officials and how important that is. That is one half of the responsibility. The other half is, it's the reason we're here. It's banner in front. It's Voices for Peace. It is our collective responsibility to advocate, and that might be as a community, that might be as a nation, that might be between nations, between religions. There is no end date to this. This is a constant struggle. This is a constant work in progress. But as long as we're moving in the right direction and having that empathy and working together, I firmly believe we can get there. But days like this help me to realize the sacrifices that were made to get here and the work that still needs to get done to move forward. So I'm just honored to be here, and I thank all of you for being part of this, because I think it makes a difference to our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Tim. At this time, I'm going to introduce to you another MP. And before I do that, a little commercial because it ties into it. We are holding the 41st World Religions Conference in 2 weeks. And that is happening at Wilfrid Laurier University. And the topic, this banner up there, we have got lots of flyers and posters back there. I encourage each one of you to take flyers back to your workplaces or wherever you are, where you can spread the word. It is a huge event, and it will be moderated by MP Mike Morris. And that's why I wanted to take a break, because MP Mike Morris happens to be here as well. He will speak his words on peace, and he's given the role to moderate the conference, and it is a big event. We're expecting 700 to 800 people. It's at Mike Lazaridis Hall at Wilfrid Laurier University, Sunday afternoon, 12:30 p.m. Thank you very much. Mike.
Assalamu alaikum. Nabil, thank you again for that kind invitation. Never in my lifetime has our world been as engulfed in the horrors of war as we are right now. And it's for that reason that I particularly appreciate the focus that you've placed on this conversation on peace, and the particularly specific conversation you've asked of us to address. Thank you to your Imam for that. And for me, the answer to that question is to use my voice and my platform that my community has given me the privilege to have, to call for peace. That's in Parliament, that's in the media, and it's online. And so I think I'll just read to you what I shared on social media just a few days ago. The words were this: on the eve of Remembrance Day, I'm reminded of these important words championed by the Mennonite Central Committee. To remember is to work for peace. Yet, images continue to come out of Gaza that make me sick. UN agencies report that over 10,000 Palestinian children have been killed now, including over 4,300 children. And so, as I have since October 8th, I continue to urge our Prime Minister to call for a ceasefire. As I have for many years, I also continue to call for an end to Canadian arms sales to Israel. I'm encouraged that over the past week another political party has joined this call for a ceasefire. Leading humanitarian organizations have as well, and so too have many colleagues of mine, including the MP that represents where we stand right now. We must keep this pressure on. As well as the federal government has, I continue to call for release of all hostages held by Hamas. Greens have also been clear that to achieve a lasting and just peace in the region, the prolonged Israeli occupation of Palestine must end. Here at home, I'm also deeply concerned about rising anti-Semitism, including in the community I grew up in Dalal des Olmos, where a synagogue was hit by a Molotov cocktail earlier this week, and of rising Islamophobia. These acts of hate
do not reflect the values of our country or of our community. And so as we prepare to mark Remembrance Day, again, I'm reminded to remember is to work for peace. Together, let us do exactly this. Ceasefire now.
Thank you, that was good. I would like to hear from MP Valerie Bradford.
Thank you so much. It is indeed an honor to be here as a Member of Parliament for Kitchener South Hesper. I wish our whole community could be here with us in this room this afternoon, because I think they would find a commonality and a unification in the message. We all desperately want peace. The fighting must stop. There is no disagreement of that. Whether you call it a ceasefire or whether you call it a humanitarian pause, the fighting has to stop. We cannot allow the continuation of the killing of innocent civilians that have nothing to do with this war. They're just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And that's what we must remember, that we need to make the fighting stop. You can't negotiate peace while you're killing each other. It's such a difficult time. You can't be bombarded with these horrific images without being impacted. And everyone, as MP May was saying, everyone is hurting. Everyone is in pain, whether they can express it or not. Our job at the federal level, and I would argue everyone in this room, is to not say things that are divisive and encouraging people to take one side or another. Canada has always been a refuge for people from all over the world who come here to flee very often horrible circumstances. And by and large, we have, over the years, done a fairly good job of making people feel welcome and accepted. And we need to do that more than ever now. We need to recognize everybody's humanity, that people are human beings, and they have a right to be here in Canada, and they have a right to live here, not in fear, not afraid to send their kids to school, not afraid to go to their religious institutions and practice their faith. And that's our job. And I feel our job is to keep the lines of communication open, to hopefully bring people together, to hear each other out, to respect each other's humanity. And I think we're filled with leaders in this room that share that same goal. And I'm so proud of our police force and all they're doing with their presence to keep people feeling safe. I know that I have spoken at mosques before and at synagogues, and I've gone to the Coalition of Muslim Women's fundraising event, and the police will have a presence there, just so people know we're here, just to make sure the bad and evil stays away, because that's what it is. So anyway, thank you for including me. You can rest assured that I will do everything I can to encourage people to feel safe, to feel that they can express themselves peacefully, because that is our right. And thank you for including me today.
Thank you, MP Valerie. We are going to take our second break, and that's going to be a little presentation by these two kids. Please stand up, and we're going to make a little poem on peace.
Jawahar of God. To pious man of God, hope comes from God. When it comes, it opens up a new vista upon the world. It turns into God and blows away each wayside with a straw. It becomes fire and scorches every adversary. At times, becoming dust, it falls on the heads of foes. At times, turning to water, it brings a tempest upon them. God's plans, in short, are hindered not by men. Can people hold any swear before the
Okay, thank you very much. Now I'm gonna give an opportunity to any of these, if they want to speak or have a few words. First, I'm gonna invite the past president of the region, Fred. You want to say a few words?
Thanks for having us here. On behalf of the Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 121, what's known as the Farmer Ceremony. We had our parade yesterday, and we were on the parade square, and I had a good look around. I was walking around actually, because it's a long story while I was walking around, and I was looking out in the crowd, and I've seen a lot of people from a lot of different cultures, a lot of different races. Remembering veterans, standing side by side. Why are we doing that every day? Why one day a year? We should be doing it every day. In the past, we had our comrade Tom Mill. He was airborne, he was Second War vet, and he used to sing a song that says, "Let there be peace on earth, let it begin with me." And why are we doing it? I mean, how many times do we gotta watch on TV or hear about war? That's no way to live. It isn't. I mean, and the higher ups, see what's saying, they're using their people to do their bidding for power. It just shocks me to no end. And I mean, I've been here, the Legion, for 47 years, and we have two things with the Legion: no religion, no politics. So when somebody walks through that door, we're all the same. And it doesn't matter what color your skin is, or what country you came from, we're all the same. And they're all welcome to join the Legion and be with. Remembrances should be every day of the year, not just one. And a very wise man said something once, actually in a movie. Morgan Freeman. I mean, he's a pretty good actor, he's been around, but he was doing this movie and he said, "You want to have peace?" He said, "It starts with the word art." If everyone did an act of random kindness to one person every day, there would be no time for it. Thank you. Thank you.
We have Bill Cody from the Waterloo District School Board Counselor. You good? Okay. I think one of your students wants to speak. Abdullah Awan, who is a student from the Waterloo District School Board student, I forgot what it is. Student counselor. Yeah, you have a few words, right? You want to come? Please.
Hello everyone, my name is Abdullah Awan. I'm a Muslim, but before them also a human. And in Islam and in this country's history, peacekeeping has been very important. As we look around and see how peace is not seen everywhere, we should all think about how important peace is and how we all should strive for peace, whether that be by talking to our neighbors, seeing how everyone's doing, and seeing how we can help out. whether that be advocating for what's going on in the world or how we feel. We are all joined here as humans, not as politicians, not as leaders, and we all should strive to be the best humans we can. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think finally, I want to give an opportunity to Doug Thomas, who is the president and lobbyist of a secular organization from Waterloo. And just a reminder that their organization actively participates in the World Religions Conference, although they don't believe in any religion, and they believe in a philosophy of no religion. But we're glad to have them every year, and they have a speaker who comes and represents the agnostics and the atheists. I'm glad that he joined us today, and I will invite him to say a few words, which are towards peace, nothing else, okay?
Yes, you do have to be careful when you invite a free thinker to speak from the microphone. And I do represent a free thinking community. The biggest significant thing is we don't share your beliefs. But we do have, we are secular humanists, which means that we believe that as human beings, we have a responsibility to each other, to help each other, to respect each other, and so on. So when something like the events in the Middle East or the events in Ukraine happen, we are very upset. Because both of these events represent the absolute loss of reason, the absolute loss of respect, the absolute loss of peace. And, you know, I've never met a veteran who opposed the idea of peace, not one. Our veterans, I think, went off to war because they had to, because they felt that they were defending what we call democracy, freedom. And in terms of peacekeeping, they were trying to make a situation where other people could enjoy what we enjoy in Canada. So they made those significant sacrifices. And yesterday and today, we remember that. That's very important. But, I think it's been said before, one of the best ways to remember their efforts is to preserve the peace they gave us. Now, I happen to be of a generation in Canada, was born immediately after the Second World War. I never had to go to war. I didn't have that problem. I certainly could watch it. I'm a student of history, so I understood what happened. And I know the armistice was mentioned years ago at the end of World War I. The problem, they set up a problem. They in effect inoculated Germany with the seeds of war because they did not respect the German people. They made them pay unpayable reparations. They denigrated their honor. And I'll be frank with you, I don't think the English, our side, had any better motivation for that war than the Germans did. Now, okay, the Germans actually invaded the rest of Europe, so okay, they don't. But fortunately, we learned from that, and after the Second World War, the Marshall Plan came in and they respected the German people. Now, there was a reason for that. The Soviet Union was looming and they didn't want a weak spot. But it demonstrated that if you treat the person you disagree with respect, even after the toughest of circumstances, the results are much better. So we secular humanists really sincerely, well, in good we trust. We really believe that if we are good to each other every day, and we respect the other fellow every day, we get a better result. We don't share your faith, but we absolutely respect and defend your right to heaven. So thank you for inviting me once again to speak, and I look forward to our speaker's perspective at the conference in 2 weeks. And we aren't as heard as much in the community as we'd like to be. we're working on that. But thank you again for inviting us, and let us just remember that we can all, day to day, build peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. I would like to give the councillors, you want to speak or are you okay? And Councillor Scott?
I'll say a word.
Okay, and Councillor, do you want to speak as well?
I'll just endorse what Councillor Hamilton.
Okay. So you both, I would like to recognize you both, and there's a councillor downstairs with the ladies, and I also request the other ladies who are up here to go downstairs and meet the ladies. So you can both come together, at least show yourselves, and then one of you can speak, the other one can endorse the other one.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you all for having us today for this wonderful event, and thank you again to the Legion for the work you did yesterday. It was tremendous all across the city and all across the province. I'll try to keep my words brief, but when I think about the concept of peace, I typically channel it through my 2-year-old girl and my 5-year-old son that I'm raising at home. And although I taught international politics overseas, I taught about Laurier, I'm going to bring up a bit of psychology on this one and say that when we see anything in the world, we don't actually detect color, we detect contrast. The eye is a contrast detector. So there's difference in everything. We wake up and we see difference everywhere. Difference is a reality in the world. What's essential is that when we see this difference, it never becomes division, that it never becomes toxic, that it never becomes hatred. So I try to teach my children every day that when we experience difference, when we experience contrast, that's a good thing. Question why it's there, explore it, look at different sides, look at different colors, but always remember that we are a shared part of this thing we call humanity. And the danger is when that division arises. Some of us have been discussing social media. When division arises on social media, I just perhaps want to echo a bit of our previous thinker, but critical thinking becomes extremely important. So whether it's social media or any type of media, critical thinking. Where does this fact come from? Who is saying it? Where is it being said? What do experts in this field say? Does a Facebook post carry the same weight as a report from the New York Times or from Al Jazeera? Right? That's something that we all have to work through every day. It's seeking opinions, different sources of facts, and remembering that we're all part of this shared component of humanity. It's our job as elected officials to piece together truths, to separate truth from mistruth, especially in something so complicated as the divisions and fractions we see in the Middle East today. I noticed on the wall over there's love for all, hatred for none, which is an amazing saying. And so I'd just like to finish this off with just a bit from my favorite philosopher. Her name's Hannah Arendt, and she would always say that violence, she wrote on totalitarianism, she wrote on the nature of the human condition, but Hannah Arendt always stressed that violence is always mute. Hatred is always mute. It carries no theory, it carries no philosophy, it carries death, it carries pain. So the only way we're going to move from violence and anger and hatred towards peace and love is through critical thinking, through celebrating difference, through welcoming opinion, through recognizing our shared sense of humanity, and through coming together as one. And that's our job as elected officials and also human beings, is to always fight against Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, any form of hate, to work with each other, our neighbors, every single level of government to push for a better world. I think that's our job. Thank you all for having us here today.
You endorse that?
I do want to say that I'm profoundly grateful for the invitation to be here today, and as I sat in that chair and listened to all the speakers, I think the synthesis of what we've heard today is that this very event is a beacon, an example of the exact sort of thing that we all need to embrace in order to have peace in our world. So thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you. We also have Pastor Frank. Do you want to say a few words? The pastor gets the last word.
I'm a child of the 30s, and I have a busy schedule today. And I thank you very much for your invitation. Last year I couldn't make it because I told you it was I was busy with a service at my church, and then I had to do a service at the long-term care home. And you said, well, don't you have a deputy? And I said, no, I am the deputy. I just wanted to thank you again for what I'm hearing today is like, as Christians, we believe that there's one golden rule. The golden rule is to love God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, with all your strength. And then comes the second part. And the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. And if you go and look at every religion in the world, that is the basis of what all these religions all have basically that same rule. So I just came from 2 days of, the Anglican Church is quite interested now in diversity. And we spent 2 days with some Hindus, some Buddhists, some Muslims, some Aboriginal people, and several other groups. And I came away from that, and I find that really the problem with all of this is that there's an ignorance of each other, and that we should really all be about learning. We have to learn what our brothers and sisters of other faiths, of other nationalities, of other cultures, like what their thinking is. And once we do that, then we will all be one. And that's because, like I've heard a couple of times today, that without enduring freedom, there shall be no peace, and without enduring peace, there shall be no freedoms. And that's really what it all boils down to. So take an opportunity anytime you have to meet with your brothers and sisters and to share some of their stories, because everybody has a story and they're all worth listening to. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you. That comes to the end of our program. If anyone will have refreshments after the concluding remarks by our National Vice President, Ahmad Sahib, who will give his concluding remarks as well as then lead us all into a silent prayer. And after that, if anybody wants to say something, we will network and we will have some refreshments. So Ahmad Sahib, please.
Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. In the name of Allah, the gracious and merciful. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be on all of you. Thanks very much for all of you to take time off your busy schedule and attend here in our mosque this event. The leader of our community, His Holiness Ahmad, has been reminding the world for the last 20 years, and he's been holding peace conferences and wherever he visits in the US and European Union and various countries. He has been reminding the world that people are going away from God, and as a result of this, there's been animosity being created amongst people, and if the powers of the world do not learn, we move towards another war, which will be the Third World War. Lately, a lot of the thinkers, a lot of the historians have started to echo these comments, and these two wars, one in Europe, one in the Middle East, are not bringing us any closer to peace, but moving more towards war. His Holiness in his Friday sermon recently mentioned that the blocks are forming, which we can see, which we can hear in the news. The blocks are forming and people are lining up, to go to war. And these wars can escalate very quickly. And in the Middle East, there's a lot of opinions that perhaps some other countries can join in and become a regional war. And once it becomes a regional war, it doesn't take that long to become a world war. So whatever we can do in our area of influence, and Canada is known to be a peacekeeper, we should and try to bring world powers back to the drawing board, because the horror of this Third World War cannot be imagined. If I remember correctly, it was 75 some million people died.
So we have weapons now. One of them can kill more than that. Much more powerful atomic weapons than those that were dropped in Japan. So let's hope and pray it does not get to it, because it will not only ruin this generation, but next many generations to come. So let's hope and pray and do whatever we can to bring peace in the world, so we do not leave this world scarred, and we do not become responsible for these horrors that may come because of our inaction. I again want to thank you all for taking the time to come and join us. Now please join me in silent prayers. In Islam, we end the program with raising our hand and offering prayers. You can join in any way that you feel comfortable. Silent prayers. Amen.
Okay, thank you very much. This program for today is adjourned. We have tea and coffee and some refreshments. Please feel free to help yourselves, and I'll be coming and talking to all of you